I will make this as painless as possible.
No worries. My name is JR Heaps. I'm a founder and one of the managing partners here at South County Brewing Company. We're located in York, Pennsylvania, which is our flagship facility, our restaurant, and I think they call it the Park Bar in the old press room in Lancaster, and then of course the original location, which is down in Fawn Grove, Pennsylvania, down there. So
excellent. And then what function now are all three functioning breweries right now, or is that?
No, so all the brewing happens here in York. We made the decision to kind of consolidate and say, hey, we're building out this, production facility, just for, tax and paperwork and just logistics and everything else. It's, we were so tailor fit to brew up here, it made sense to make sure that let's just lump it all up. So we brought up the tanks and everything up here. Fawn Grove now has a arcade kind of thing going on. Can't call it barcade because that's actually trademarked, I found out. I thought that was just a universal term, but that's actually trademarked. But it's actually, arcades and TVs, some decent hangout space, and you can rent that space out now, plus the tap room and the patio around back. And then with the Lancaster location, it's events, sit down food, the bar, and then the Park Bar outside. But everything's consolidated brewing, and both spirits and beer are made here.
So I was trying to think about, what year did you what year was the concept of South County? And then what year did you officially launch in Fawn Grove?
So the real seed, I think for me, or at least when it became more than just a pipe dream, was starting to do kind of the investigative work for like zoning and, what's it really take to put a structure up or get a structure? And, my family there owned that, industrial commercial property there in Fawn Grove. And we thought, well, hey, why pay high rent? If you have a place you can build equity for the family, at least initially to get the building up. And, so that was around 2008. And then started, I've been homebrewing for a while and really started to travel and talk to people and, learn the ropes of the industry and get recommendations. And the funny thing is 2008 wasn't exactly the heyday, but compared to now, 2008 might as well be 2 lifetimes ago in the beer world. But just, when I look back on it now, I remember at the time there was literally a handful of breweries if you were lucky. And I'd look on a map and I kind of had the cold sweats about, is this a great idea? And then you look at a map now and it's just dozens and dozens and dozens of breweries. And it just shows you how the landscape has changed and everything else. But anyways, it was a seed in 2008, started building construction 2010, and then we were open, pouring our first beer, which is America Ale. It would have been July 1st of 2011. Wow. So next year at that date will be our 15th year. We're 14 and a half now, but next year, summertime will be our 15th year for South County.
When you say that, you definitely reiterate that feels like a lifetime ago. We knew each other was 15 years ago.
Yeah. Yep.
So let's go to that home brewing time and kind of talk about pre-commercial and everything like that. What, it was a passion project. What were the situations that kind of aligned to you when you're like, I want to step up from home brewing to really start scaling this out?
It mainly went, I think the biggest catalyst was I was working in, I guess you would call it restoration or historic design build. It was a company called South Bend, down in Maryland. I'd gotten my, associate's degree at York Technical Institute over here for drafting and technology, had been building my whole life as a kid, working with my dad construction. So I'd gotten a job, for a landscape design build company, as well as a really nice company that did historic design build and timber frame, much like you see here. And, loved it. But in 2008, housing crash, market crash, there's a lot of stuff going on. And, my boss at the time looked at me and was like, hey man, he goes, these projects just aren't happening like they used to. I know you're into this beer thing. You might want to check it out. Almost like I don't know if we're going to be in business. Yeah. It was a stark contrast working on multi-million-dollar projects to hear all of a sudden the business might not be there or was getting put on hold or whatever. So that kind of was a push or a nudge in that direction. And, me being the person that I am, I always wanted my own thing, you know what I mean? Or kind of, be at the helm, so to speak. And, I'm also the type of personality that once I latch onto something, you know what I mean, you just see it through to the end, good, bad, or indifferent. So that was kind of the kickoff for Catalyst into that. And I had built, the typical, back in the day, they called it the Brutus 10, but it was 3 15-gallon kegels, much like Sam Calagione, that system that, he references, but it was, I built my own version with pumps and, temperature controllers and stuff like that. And, was doing pretty good beer on a little 10-gallon system, and, of course you get the encouragement from friends and families and fools and all this other stuff. And, that's where I kind of made that jump off and, then went scrambling just because of the bootstrap nature of it, trying to find equipment that was affordable. And ended up building my own equipment essentially. I've always kind of fabricated and welded and did different stuff. So I found, some old, Grundy tanks from a guy named Scott, who in the brewing industry they refer to as the dude. Anyway, so long story short, you'd go in and you'd see 3 brew houses and 3 Pratt Whitney aircraft motors sitting in a warehouse, and Scott just dealt in it all, and so I picked up these 4 Grundy tanks out of an old pub in Virginia. They were originally from England, came to Virginia, and then somehow ended up with him. Used 2 as like fermentation combo tanks, and then cut the other 2 up as a mash tun in the kettle, and kind of fabricated my own thing. And to the best of my knowledge, that brew house is still making beer. Crazy enough, that Frankenstein, Kyle Neuheimer at Oak Brook in Reading, he had purchased it, and as last I know, he's still actually making beer on it, which is wild that that's still in existence.
That's awesome.
Which is pretty rad. I mean, it's awesome that it helps somebody out.
That's true testament to your craft.
Yeah.
So walk me back to those days, to the 2008, 2010. You and I were both working in this market out here, and it was a different market than it is today. Everything's cans now. Back then we still had 12-ounce bottles. We had 16s and 12-ounce cans kind of beginning to come up. And then you went a different path and really made a name for yourself with your 750s.
Yeah, I mean, we had, that was a function of, again, bootstrapping as well as an affordable way to get a packaged product to people, the bomber, so to speak. Yeah. And, I had fabricated basically like a modified 4-head homebrew bottle filler where I literally took like some stainless slides that I found, and I think I used, essentially the AZEC or the PVC material, just, cause it was easy enough for me to construct where basically you slid 4 bottles in, there was a little stop, you kind of came down and held it in place, you purged it, then you filled it and then popped it up, and then like my brother at the time, whoever was helping me, would just cap them on, and we'd be doing 12 packs of bombers at a time. I'd literally run my pickup truck up to Zuckerman Honickman in King of Prussia, and they had this ramp that you had to like somehow finagle so they could get the forklift down to my truck to like, it was wild. And here I am running home with this giant stack of glass bottles all strapped down in the back of my truck. But we did it, and it worked for a while. And then, I saw what was happening in like 2012, 2013. The New England thing was just starting to get off the ground, Hill Farmstead, places like that. And I knew we had to dip our toes in it, and what was crazy is that up until that point, the only hazy beer anybody had heard of was Blue Moon or a wheat beer or whatever. And the mark of a good beer was a clear, crisp, clean beer. And now all of a sudden there was this kind of technical, on the brewing side, but also on the social side. It's like, well, wait, do we like these hazy beers? What is this, And, it was funny too, because even seeing some of the first hazy beers, if you go back on social media, they were actually kind of ruddy and dark compared to that bright golden, and just watching that whole thing evolve. And so we were a little hesitant because I wasn't sure what was going on, the beer industry, how it moves. But then our first real one that we kind of got in a can and marketed was Liminal. That was that first hazy style IPA. And we had done that with mobile contract canning, until we had bought our own line. But I'm sorry, I should back up a little bit. In between that, we had built our own 12-ounce line. So we were doing the 22s. We realized the 22s had a finite placement market only because, those bottles were considered like reserved, barrel reserved or aged so marketing that was tough. I was like, okay, well, we need to get into a more familiar format. Again, bootstrap, couldn't afford, $50,000 or $100,000 line. Even a $40,000 Maheen 6-head or 4-head would have been crazy. So, me and my brother had helped me at the time. We had basically built and cobbled together. I bought a piece of conveyor and built what was known as like the paradigm filler and the Maheen, and we kind of smashed it together. My brother programmed the logic on it. So we had created our own, 12-ounce counter-pressure bottle filler. And made it from scratch. And literally the tub that tossed the caps was just like a soup pot, a stainless soup pot that I cut the bottom off and retrofitted. We machined a bunch of stuff. And again, much like the original brew house, that machine is still running out at Big Hill Cider. To this day, if you drink Big Hill Cider bottles, that's where it's coming from. Ooh, let me catch it.
Oh, there we go. We're good. I'll wave my hands.
Yeah. And so, Ben Kishbaugh and Troy Lehman out at we sold it to them for a song, and I just told him, I said, listen, the old, don't put the hate on me, Ricky Bobby type guy. I'm like, listen, I was like, I'll sell it to you. I said, but please don't hate me, and, it's run ever since. It's just crazy. You know what I mean? And so I'm sure that somewhere's on their social media, you can go see that old machine running to this day, but it was a hand-built Frankenstein, and just stair-stepping. Every time you gain a little bit more. And then once we started getting into contract canning and started doing well with some of the hazier beers, and, we used to do a Pilsner called Pullman Pilsner, and, which for various reasons we since retired. But, we started cans were basically, I think, that part of that big democratization in beer to allow small breweries to make money. Haze was driving dollars into the tap rooms, and before it's like you had to fight the big distribution machine. It was just a hard thing to break, KPIs and giveaways and all this other stuff. It was just impossible. Nobody had marketing budgets like some of the bigger, and to their credit, the regional craft brewers, they earned it. They worked their way up and got there. But it definitely was a wall, a barrier to entry, and Haze was just this like equalizer that suddenly those dollars could now work local. They were an immediate return because you were seeing it over the bar at the tap room, and canning, and these small canning machines really opened up the door. And it definitely helped us. It was definitely a part of our story for sure.
Who did you guys use for canning?
Originally Ironheart, and then that company has overgone, I don't know how many different iterations, and mainly consolidation. Because I think that market, everybody started buying their own packaging equipment, so it was like got harder and harder, so they consolidated. And then eventually, Josh Schaffner, Ninth Planet, Beverage, he was on the road with the mobile unit. And of course, the crazy stories, 2 a.m. nights of me and him down there at this machine that was a prototype from Cody, which they're a big manufacturer of depalletizing, for like Ball and Coke, equipment like that. They set up those plants. And, so they started offering these small filling machines, and they were very much prototypes. So here I am ripping apart this rotary filler at 2 a.m. Josh is sleeping at my house in the spare room. We became really good friends and are still good friends to this day. He's since got off the road because it's a hard life, and he's doing co-packing up in New York. But we did many a run with Josh, you know what I mean? And then eventually we ended up ordering our own Cody filler, which we have since sold and ran on that for a number of years. The decal and stuff is still here, but so yeah, it was some wild times, man.
Now going from there, like into not too much in your personal life, but you were somewhat of a single man, or at least dating at that time. Then you're married now children. Like, how is that?
Yeah,
how's being in the industry and all these expansions and balancing everything?
It definitely takes, I was married once before, and certain things in life don't work out. So, around 2012, I met my now wife, and, if you're in this industry, you need somebody who's willing to take it for the long haul. Just the amount of hours that were worked and the dedication that it takes to be in small business in general. I mean, it's not unique to brewing or anything else, or even, hospitality in that regard, which has its own element to it. So it's hard. I mean, but you have people that are interested in making something succeed and work. And if those people are there, I now have a son who's 5.5. And I'm fortunate enough now that the business is mature enough that those 2 a.m. nights are no longer, not typically part of the program anymore. I have really good people that work under us that take care of that kind of stuff for the most part. You know what I mean? There's always something happening, but yeah, I mean, I don't have too much to complain about. You know what I mean? It could always be something different, and I'm happy to be where I'm at, and things worked out.
Is your son at an age now? Like, I remember Jack and Emma like really getting excited about going to the warehouse and seeing. Is he like coming down here and checking out? Or does he not understand yet?
He's, you know what? It's one of those things where I think it's neat to him overall, but he's such a creative art type that he's more into playing drums and drawing and doing stuff like that. The mechanical stuff, he understands how it works, but we found that he really just, he's an only child. So because he's gotten so good at occupying himself, you know, he just likes to create on his own. You know what I mean? So that's where more often than not, he's just doing his own thing at the house, and we'll see what comes of that. So
also, I mean, major transition of, you know, the tasting room. What was the square footage of the tasting room in Fawn Grove?
So the whole building was 4,000, and I think 300 of that was the little bar there.
So you got a 300 square foot place in the very beginning, and now you have this facility, which is, what's the square footage here offhand, you know?
Walkable under roof is in the neighborhood of 30,000.
And then press room?
Ooh, I don't know the exact square footage, but I mean, it's got to be in the thousands of square feet, you know, because you have you have the big kitchen, and then there's the room in the back for events, and then the main bar area. The press room is a big facility, and then there's a huge mechanical run downstairs as far as coolers and storage.
And the courtyard.
And then of course, the courtyard too. It's a very, very nice place over there. And, so yeah, I mean, to back up, you know, I started by myself, originally had 3 partners that had come in to kind of usher that growth from like 14 to 19, 2014 to 2019. One of those partners unfortunately had passed due to pretty evasive cancer, and anybody that's known somebody with, almost everybody has a story like that where it's just heartbreaking. And it was 3 brothers, and the other partners, I think they just, you know, everybody sees different courses in life, and I think with losing a brother, it was ultimately decided that they were going to, you know, part ways, and they were a little bit older, so they had different life goals than I did. And our current partners now, you know, the Tarosos, had stepped up and saw an opportunity there. And were, you know, part and parcel, big catalyst in why all this exists, obviously. You know, this is no small undertaking. And so, you know, they came into the fold, they saw a vision, you know, much in what I did, and were interested in executing that and had the wherewithal to do that. And, you know, we now have this huge platform, this community hub. I mean, we can look out the window right now and see all these people, you know, seeming to have a great, wonderful time on the patio. And, you know, we host events, and it's really been neat to see how this folds into, you know, the southern part of York County now. But
have you, I mean, everything's go, and all these locations and stuff like that. Have you had a chance every once in a while to sit in the silence of everything and really kind of reflect on the past 15 years?
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of time for that. Yeah, you know, my office is in the distillery basically, and so it's a nice quiet space that I'm often, whether I'm thinking about marketing or sales or managing different stuff, and every now and again I'll just happen to kind of get up the stretch and I'll look across the patio, and you don't, when you're doing it 15 years ago and all you're literally trying to do is get a batch of beer out the door, you never think about something you did now becoming part of the fold in somebody's discretionary income. You know, let's go up to South County, or let's, you know, and you're in it, like you're so deep and so entrenched in it that it's difficult to see it from an outside perspective. I mean, one of the things I've often said I'd love to be able to have the experience to do is, let's say I lived in another state and didn't know South County from any other brewery, is come here and get that first take. Because man, would that be helpful, you know, because I'm the type, I'm like, there's things I could learn, we can improve on, you know. But it is wild, you know, and it goes by so quick. I mean, in some ways it feels like the first day, but yet it's almost 15 years later. So.
I mean, it's 1:00 on a Friday, and it's packed down there.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, the weather's great. I mean, it's, you know, it feels like that early fall is rushing in. I hope it stays, you know, it doesn't get cold, but, and yeah, I mean, we're just so fortunate in what is still a tough economy by any respects. I mean, maybe there's some improvements happening, but everybody's feeling the sting. It's just the nature of the world. And, people are choosing to come here, and we're grateful for that. You know, there's lots of good options.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And as far as wholesale goes, if somebody lives a little bit outside of York and can't make it out here every once in a while, like, are you guys still wholesale distributing around Pennsylvania and stuff?
Yeah. So we self-distribute, all of Maryland, which it's like, I want to say 7 counties. And then, which covers a good breadth of the state. We don't go on the other side of the bay because that's just tricky. Yeah. But, you know, Hartford, Baltimore County, Monco, we go as far out as almost Virginia in some respects. Where's that? West Virginia right there.
Yeah.
A neat little place called Cugini's out there. But anyways, the 4 or 5 county area right around York County. And then we recently picked up, Lamb Beverage, in the Philly market. They're out of Coatesville, and then I think they're doing, I want to say 11 counties for us.
Nice.
Haven't hit the western part of the state yet. Just looking for the right opportunity. I mean, there's a lot of breweries that throw around the beer. PA seems to be almost like a dumping ground too at some points, because we're such a big beer market, and, you know, stuff comes and goes, and it's just amazing to watch what happens. But, and we've been fortunate that we're still in growth, you know, all these years later, just slow, steady growth. And that's kind of where we want to be, because you want to be here 10 years more, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And one of the crazy things, you know, speaking about the haze craze, and which almost, again, that almost seems like eons ago, you know, COVID pretty much took that whole era and just smashed it flat, condensed it overnight. It could have probably had another 4 or 5 year run, but, you know, and it's crazy because it's like, you know, my sales guys will go out to one of the distributors and they'll say, did you know so-and-so was on the shelf sitting warm? You know, beer that you had to stand in line in a major city, you know, to go spend $300 or $400 to mule it back home, is now sitting on a shelf warm in York County. And so it's like, that was a huge wake up call for me and a lot of people in the industry. It's like, okay, we've matured. It's a whole different realm now. You know, we're hospitality and beverage companies, not just breweries anymore. You know, we're toying with other NA products, just seeing, not that I don't know if we'd ever compete on a, you know, huge scale with Athletic or somebody like that, but our customers are asking for it. Many people have opted to just get away from alcohol altogether for health reasons. You know, the younger generation seem to be making lateral moves into different products, you know, CBD, THC, depending on the state and whatever. And, so we're looking at that stuff. You know, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole and there not be a sales opportunity. In a lot of those markets, you need just a tremendous amount of sales force to make it a product outside of your. So we're kind of, you know, we're distributing, we're doing well. People love our beers, and we're a part of our local kind of 100-mile radius. And then a lot of what we do is in the tap room and brewery here. So
in closing, talk a little bit about kind of the environment that people can expect when they come here. We go to a lot of different breweries, and so like everybody has their own unique themes and things like that. Just kind of explain to me what kind of people can expect when they get in.
I mean, here in York, what we wanted to do is, I use the moniker, you know, steel, wood, and stone, that the timeless, you know, stuff that no matter how our brand or how beer evolves, I think human beings respond to these old world type feels and structures. So, you know, we lucked out on this beautiful, almost 13-acre property here in York County that's minutes to 83. And when you kind of come up the winding road, all of a sudden, in my opinion, you feel like, oh, well, where am I? Like, this doesn't feel like York County at all. Like, in the traditional sense, typically it's a industrial park or, you know, an old brick building downtown or something. So we built our own kind of destination with the timber frame out here and the patios. And so, you know, just a super relaxed environment, kind of a choose your experience. If you want to sit at the bar, sit down. We have a little mini arcade here, loft bar, patio. It's however you want to experience us. You know, we have, Adirondacks and fireplace chairs or fireplaces outside with chairs all around that. And, you know, barbecue sandwiches, pizza, a couple elevated items. You know, I mean, our Justin Blizzard, our executive chef here, does a terrific job. Always experimenting with new foods and flavors and specials and seasonal ingredients. So those guys are trying to, you know, find that balance between, you know, we're not 5-star food. That's not what we're trying to be, but value with, familiar and consistent food that is, definitely elevated. I mean, we put a lot of care. We make our own pizza dough. We make a lot of our own foods from scratch here. We call it a scratch kitchen because these guys, we have 2 bakers dedicated to just this location. Wow. So all the breads, all the desserts, everything you eat, they're made here, which is really awesome. We're proud to say that. So.
It has a huge warm environment.
Yeah.
For the size that it is, it feels very welcoming. And I like, you're right. I mean, the wood, everything like that just really ties everything, you know, the old Lebowski joke, it ties the room together.
Yeah.
I mean, it really does.
Yeah.
It really makes it feel very warm and it makes it stand out. Yeah. And I appreciate it. And JR, I really appreciate taking the time to talk about your story and everything like that. It's one for the books, man. Your story, I mean, and really, like everything you just said from creating everything, like I remember, you know, 10, 15 years ago being in there and you described and all that. And it's just amazing to see where we're sitting right now, and just proud to have known you for that period of time.
I appreciate it. You know, I mean, if nothing else, I always tell people, if you just wake up every day and keep stepping in a direction, I'm not going to guarantee it'll work out for you, but it sure as hell beats the alternative of not doing that. And I think that's the difference between people that make it and people that don't, you know, and some people, for all the trying in the world, it doesn't work out sometimes. And there's some great brewers and breweries that they called it quits because they just couldn't make it work. You know what I mean? But we're very fortunate in the sense that everybody that's been a part of this and involved in it has always driven that vision forward. And I'd like to think that we're part of the foundation of York County now, that, you know, we are much that, you know, Trogs is to Hershey, and, like you got Cinderlands and Dancing Gnome, those guys in Pittsburgh and stuff like that. You know, we are South Central PA. South County's kind of that household name. You know, we're continuing to grow on that, and you can catch us at the ball stadiums all around, different beer opportunities there. And, you know, we have our event rooms, you know, so we do a lot of, involvement with the communities, locally here as far as corporate events and celebration of life and all that kind of stuff. So, we're happy to be here and look for many years in the future. So.
Perfect. Well, thanks, man.
Yeah. Thank you.